An offseason with a lot of big names on the market, not just in free agency, Randip, but also in trades. Seth Jones really headlines the D market. And then there's Jack Eichel and maybe even Matthew Tkachuk now up front. Let's start with Eichel, the entry draft less than a month from now. What do you think is the biggest hurdle for teams potentially acquiring Jack Eichel?
Oh, the biggest hurdle by far is the health of the player. Let's talk about a trade in a little bit, but this is a guy with a herniated disc in his neck. He's been sitting out for 12 weeks resting, which is great, but the next step is pretty uncertain. What happens? Is there going to be surgery? If there is surgery, he's got to sit out for 3 months on top of that. And what kind of player is he when he returns? That is a valid concern for an acquiring team. And if you're the Buffalo Sabres, you're sweating more than I am during the BC heat wave because you're not sure what comes forward, in the future with this player. So to me, the health is the biggest concern with this player. When he's going, Jack Eichel is a franchise player. We know this. 2019, 2020, this guy early on in this season was a Hart Trophy candidate. But what does he look like after a potential surgery, if he has that? And what comes for this player, after his 12 weeks of just sitting out? This is a massive question and might hold up any deal.
Just have an iced Spro, Randy. It'll help with the overheating that you're
experiencing. I'm a good soda guy. Cream soda and milk. Go for it.
So we know what affects his value, and we're going to talk about some of the potential landing spots here in a minute. But the health part of it is huge, and the ask is also huge right now. John Vogel of The Athletic mentioned a franchise cornerstone, a first-round pick, and a high-end prospect. Larry Brooks of the New York Post said the equivalent of 4 first-round picks to acquire Jack Eichel. Are you paying that price?
For this Jack Eichel, I'm not. 4 first-round picks or the equivalent of that is a very, very difficult price to pay when you have that huge question mark of what is he? How long is he going to be actually, sitting out after a potential surgery? Is he having that surgery? We know there's been some drama there. So that 4 first-round pick or that equivalency, no. I'm looking more at probably 3 pieces. And are you looking at 3 first-round picks? No, you're looking at some high-end prospects, an impact player right now. But 4 first-round picks to me is steep. I'm looking at 3 pieces, including a first-round pick, a prospect, and a really good top 6 player, ideally down on the wings for the Buffalo Sabres, because they are pretty light on that aspect. So to me, 4, I understand why Kevin, Adams wants to shoot a shot, but I'm not taking that shot.
Yeah, I feel the asking price is high right now. But look, when Eichel is on his game, he's one of the best centermen in the NHL, and we know that. So there's going to be a lot of teams that want him. We know the Rangers are easily in this conversation. They make a lot of sense. Who are some of the other contenders for Jack Eichel?
Okay, the team I'm looking at is in the Pacific Division, a weak Pacific Division. It's the Anaheim Ducks. This is an organization that's in a bit of a weird transition period right now. You have the Getzlaffs of the world who are clearly on the way out, gave great years of service, but we know Ryan Getzlaff has slowed down. They've got a young group coming up, whether it's, players like Zegras or Drysdale. They've got some really, really good young talent, but this is a GM that wants to keep his team relevant right now in Bob Murray. And as of right now, the Anaheim Ducks have some very good pieces. 2 guys that I mentioned, doesn't seem like they want to move off them, but Lundestrom is another good player that they have in their prospect pool. We know Bob Murray loves selecting defensemen in the draft as well. And they've got some very, very good players beyond that as well. Go further down that lineup, Comtois, Sam Steele. There's other players in that prospect pool that make sense in a deal, including first-round picks. But beyond that, Anaheim, they need to do something. They've been kind of in a lull for the last couple of years. Bob Murray, he needs to do something because his job has been up in question as well. So to me, Anaheim is perfect for Jack Eichel. He goes to a Western Conference market, which apparently Buffalo is rather willing to do business with Western Conference teams than the East. So to me, the Anaheim Ducks, if they want to be relevant again, this is the move you make.
Now, we know for me, it's not Anaheim. I think Vegas is kind of the team that's lurking in the weeds here for Jack Eichel, especially after the way they crashed out against Montreal. Go big or go home. That's the way you do it in Vegas, and that's what they've done through their entire existence in the National Hockey League, and I don't see why they wouldn't do that with Jack Eichel. You can't win a Stanley Cup with Chandler Stevenson as your number 1 center. As good as Chandler Stevenson has been, a find for them from the Washington Capitals, it's just not going to work. They got beat through the middle of the ice against the Montreal Canadiens with Suzuki and Kotkaniemi and what they had to offer through there. Danault, of course. But if you're Vegas, you went for Pietrangelo last year. Every year you're going for something big. Mark Stone, Max Pacioretty, they're always going for it. This one has to be Jack Eichel. I don't know if they have the pieces. That's the big question there. Is it going to have to be Krebs and maybe a Shea Theodore, Alex Tuck? You know, they have some good pieces. Are they the big pieces that Buffalo wants? Would they want to part with a Shea Theodore in a trade for Jack Eichel? Those are massive questions. Plus, the cap space is an issue. But I think Vegas, they're one team that's always in it for the big names.
Yeah, Vegas is not afraid to make that move. And another key component of that is that Bill Foley, their owner, has made it clear that he wants to win a cup. He's not getting any younger. He's 70 years old, and it is a priority in Vegas. A couple other teams to watch. You mentioned the Rangers. We know they have assets. The question is, do the Buffalo Sabres want to deal with the New York Rangers? That is a legit question at this point. And another team that, remember, has plenty of cap room, needs impact players, it's the Columbus Blue Jackets. So, you know, it might not be a sexy market in the NHL when it comes to free agency and trades, but this is a team that needs star power, and Jarmo Kekalainen is not afraid to make moves. All right, let's switch over to the West Coast and talk about the Calgary Flames. We know the winds of change are a-blowing in Calgary. They disappointed again this year, and the latest rumor, thanks to our boy Shane O'Brien, who you can listen to on the People Show every Thursday, mentioned that looks like Matthew Tkachuk may want out of Calgary, and St. Louis could be a destination. But, Reach, let's back it up a little bit. Does this potential move of trading Matthew Tkachuk make sense for the Calgary Flames?
I think everything's on the table for the Calgary Flames in the way that their season went down. You know, they had the big offseason with Jacob Markstrom and Chris Tanev last year and everything that went into that. There's always the questions surrounding Sean Monahan and Johnny Gaudreau. And then there's Matthew Tkachuk, who everything was peaches and roses for him through the first few years of his career. But last year, something felt off, and there was a situation with the Leafs and Muzzin flipping the puck, and a lot of questions came out of that around Matthew Tkachuk. Now, there's only been denials, but I'm just curious because I think everything is on the table for Matthew Tkachuk and the Calgary Flames, especially the Flames, who are willing to do anything to get back into the playoff conversation. What are some landing spots for Matthew Tkachuk?
Okay, I mentioned St. Louis off the top, and St. Louis is interesting because it's his hometown. That being said, do they have the pieces? And I know Shane mentioned the name of Vladimir Tarasenko. Listen, this is a player that when he's good, he's really good. But he's been hurt for a long time, going back the last couple of years now. So that's a serious question.
And he's much older than Tkachuk. He's much older.
I don't see that deal. I'll be honest with you. I think the hometown aspect makes a lot of sense. Here's my thought. The Ottawa Senators. We're talking about teams that have actual pieces to play with. You know the Ottawa Senators do. I could see a package around first-round picks, Eric Brandstrom potentially, and maybe one or two more pieces in that deal. Reunite the brothers, bring Brady alongside Matthew, and have a tandem in Ottawa. Get the brothers playing together, maybe on the same line or in separate lines. Playing two Tkachuks in one night. Imagine how hated they would be across the league. I am all for it.
That's an interesting proposition. I've got one that's maybe even a little bit more than that. The Toronto Maple Leafs for Matthew Tkachuk. Look, the Leafs are looking to shake things up. You could see a hockey deal between these two teams. I know they've said we're not trading any of the big forwards, but if you're able to acquire a Matthew Tkachuk for a William Nylander plus, or maybe you get really creative and think of Mitch Marner and that type of a deal. Look, the Leafs have the pieces to make a trade with the Calgary Flames, and Tkachuk is that player. I know they've brought back Wayne Simmons, but they want the player up in the lineup that can bring the skill and sandpaper element that they've so desperately needed through their playoff failures. Where do you think Jack Eichel and Matthew Tkachuk might end up? Let us know in the comments, and we'll see you in the next video.